Well, I know you have a full deck of stuff to go over, so I'll be brief this morning. I'm Iddo Benzeevi, and welcome to our little house here. This is where a lot of the things that are happening out in this region for us run out of this office. Most of you probably know you're sitting at the World Logistics Center. This is our main industrial logistics project. It consists of about 42.5 million square feet on a footprint and up to 100 million square feet in capacity. It's hard to see because we have it all sort of gated and screwed off, but there's a lot of infrastructure construction happening inside the site, this entire valley there, and you saw probably one more building coming up, should be completed by October. And so we're excited to have more companies, more business coming into Moreno Valley. But what's more important is that all those companies have people working there, and those people need housing. So to that effect, we have a lot of housing developments planned for the Moreno Valley area. One of them, you've probably seen this model. You've probably seen the presentation on the town center, which will be a 15,000 unit mixed-use development right by the hospitals, you know, where the Kaiser and the university hospitals are. That big empty piece of land, that's where the town center project will be. It used to be called Aquabella. And we got fully permitted, entitled for the zoning. So now it's a matter of designing it, and we are in the process of designing, hopefully, depending on how quickly things can go with the city and so forth, because it's a big project, we're hoping to go vertical in about 18 months to 2 years. Maybe it can happen faster. But hopefully, that's the time frame that we'll start seeing stuff going up. What you haven't seen that's already been going on is a lot of infrastructure work at the Aquabella. I'll call it Aquabella. It's the town center site. So a lot of the underground stuff that you don't quite see has been put in, and it was quite substantial. And that will help us accelerate going vertical when we're ready to go with the plan. So we're doing it in parallel. It will also have a lake, a big lake, about 40 acres. And if you carefully look at the site, you'll see a lot of it has been dug up already. And so that work is continuing. We also have 2 other communities that are in process. They're actually located by Gilman Spring Road in the Badlands. How many of you remember the Quail Ranch Golf Course? A lot of you do. So that's one of the properties. And then there's Hidden Springs. You're familiar with that? It hasn't been open for a long time. But all of those properties, we've assembled those properties, and they're currently being planned for 2 master plan communities actually be merged to one big location, about 2,800 residential units. And that actually requires that we go through the CEQA process, the zoning and planning, and that's begun. So the NOP, the Notice of Preparation, has been filed, and the public hearing has taken place, and so it's well underway. We're hoping that within 8 months to a year, we'll be in public hearings for the approval of those. So that's going on as well. It'll be sort of a higher-end housing stock to make sure that we cover the whole full breadth of demand that could be here, from housing that most people can afford to, more higher-end products that, hopefully we'll see more and more demand for in Moreno. Feelings are expensive as they are, but, hopefully it will be more demand for executives and others that are coming to work in this center. So the World Logistics Center project is estimated to create about 20,000 jobs. And those 20,000 jobs mean there's 20,000 potential families that need to live someplace, and hopefully closer to where the job is. So the demand for housing, this will drive a lot of demand for housing over time. And the town center as well. There'll be housing there, but there'll also be mixed uses, some healthcare and other things that generate jobs, and people, typically would like to live next to where they live if the environment, the quality of life and everything else is good. So we're building highly amenitized projects that can compete with any place else. In fact, we believe that this will be the best location to live over the next few years. Moreno Valley will become the premier place because of the amenities that you won't find in any other city. Between the housing, the shopping, everything else, we hope to have it all in Moreno Valley, including jobs. So we see Moreno Valley will become an attraction to a lot of companies, a lot of people that may want to live here or even work in the area. So this is an overview of where we are. So within the next 2 years, 24 months, we're hoping to see a lot of activities in the residential side. And of course, you'll see more activities happening on the industrial, which is good because that's generate housing demand, right? There's jobs and people who come and work here actually need to live in the area as well. So I'll be happy to answer some questions. And we do have a presentation of what those projects looks like, but I think a lot of you may have seen it, so I won't go through it again. But if you like to and you have time, we can always present some of that. But I'll open it up for questions in case any of you have any, and be happy to answer any question.
Now's your chance. We don't. Yeah, go ahead.
With Gilman Springs Road being as massive as it is, what's the plan to help with all that housing stuff?
Yeah, Gilman Spring Road will be improved. There's plans in the counties, and we're working with them. So Gilman Spring Road, actually, we end up being a 6-lane divided highway. And one of the innovations that we're doing with the county is that we won't necessarily have stoplights. It'll be all big roundabout or traffic circles. So the traffic will flow, and you can get in and out. I know some are not used to that, but as soon as you get used to it, you see that it's very easy to negotiate, but it really helps out with traffic, and it's a lot safer. You don't have head-on collisions. You don't have any ability to get into accidents as easily as when you have in a four-way intersection. So that's something that the county has come a long ways with us. This was right here. That was the first one. That was a 20-year, I won't call it a battle, but a 20-year, we had to go several traffic engineers in the city before we finally could, get that up. But if you drove through it, you can see that before there used to be people stop and stack, and now it just flows, and you never see any congestion around this roundabout. So it helps a lot.
Yeah, if you spend any time at Iddo's presentation, he's very passionate about his roundabouts.
Yeah, we love roundabouts. That's some states actually now. I think Indiana, if I read correctly, they said all roundabouts now. They don't want any intersections anymore, no stoplights, and they're really much more efficient, much more safer, and they're actually better environmentally because most of the pollution we get is from idling, and when you have big intersections with lots of car idling, so it's actually good environmentally too.
Okay, if you have a question, I'm going to give you the mic
Sure.
just because Adam's trying to capture this on video.
So is this a concept of Europe? Because you see the roundabouts more in Europe.
Yes, actually, we're sort of late into the game in America. This is not a new thing. Roundabouts has been around for a long, long time. But we sort of started to adapt it here in America a little bit at a time. But they work really well in some countries. In Europe, like you said, big highways, they're all roundabouts. And the new intersection, actually, what used to be called Theodore, now it's called World Logistics Center Parkway, the exit. There will be a new Caltrans interchange, probably within a couple of years. We're well underway with the design. And that will be roundabouts too. So it will be one of the first intersections, and instead of coming to a stoplight and negotiating the intersections, it's basically roundabouts. So you'll come in and out of the freeway without having to stop. So that's another innovation we're doing with Caltrans. Yeah.
Are other groups developing in Moreno Valley other than your own group?
Yeah, there's some other building activities. You may see some tracks, nothing on this scale, but there are buildings. Not so much industrial anymore because most of the land that was available for industrial development has been consumed. There's still some land available for residential development, but these are smaller parcels, smaller tracks. But hopefully there'll be more of those as well. But there's no big-scale communities planned for Moreno Valley as of right now, except for what we're doing.
Hey, when do you think you're going to start building for the houses? And will they be available for realtors to represent to sell, or?
Yeah, as soon as there's housing stocks, it's all available, and anybody who has buyers or can help their clients acquire homes, we work with everybody, and we love brokers. Brokers have a unique place in the world and a very important place because you can really help people make the right decisions, show them the right product, and hopefully we will have the right product that all of your customers and clients will want to be at. So we're very happy to work with all of you when the product gets off the ground.
The 2,800 homes to be built, will that be one developer or numerous developers?
So we're not at that stage yet. We are the master developer, which means we will build the whole community. But then when we start building the housing, the neighborhoods within the communities, we'll have to make those decisions then. Maybe some we will build, maybe some will have others that may are specialized in some products. You know, some have, each one of them specializes more or less, and they have their own product types. And depending on the time, the circumstance, what's happening in the market, we will select the right mix.
So you make that decision, what builder and developer will build the homes?
Right.
Great.
Anybody got anything else? Just give me a quick heads up. The Gilman Springs, is it going to be on the east and the west side of Gilman? Where's
It's mostly on the east side of Gilman Spring,
Mostly
in
on
the
the-
hills.
on
So you
the-
have beautiful views into Mystic. Actually, I don't know if you've been on the Quail Ranch property, but they're spectacular views. It's one of the best kept secrets in Moreno Valley that nobody ever did. They tried. You know, if you look at Gilman Spring Road on the east side, you see some custom homes that have been built over the years. That's because they're spectacular views, but they could never get the right development happening around there. I think they were struggling with financing over the years, so they became a lot sales program. People bought lots and bought some kind, but they never could develop into a nice gated community.
Yeah.
But the reason it's even there is because, and some people who did build houses there is because the views are phenomenal. So it would be a really, really great place to live once it's up. Yeah.
You said gated communities. Is this project going to be a gated community?
So that's a choice we will make, you know, for security. But if, you know, the city did a good job, we have a great police department, and we think, you know, people have their safety without having to be gated, then we won't have to have gates. But it's also could be within these big master plan communities, there could be gated neighborhoods, but the community as a whole doesn't necessarily have to be gated.
Okay, but mostly on the east side of Gilman. John and I were talking about that, and if you're not familiar with that area, you know, pretty much everything that way is the Badlands. If you've been on the phone with me at any time in the last 10 years, I'm going through the Badlands. I'll call you back when I get to the other side, which they now seem to have that figured out. You can drive through there. But at any rate, so in the foothills, more or less.
Yeah, when you look at Gilman Spring Road and you look up, it's right up from the road, up into those Badlands, as you call it, Badlands. Why they're bad, I don't know, but there's Badlands. It's beautiful lands. When I look at it, I say it's beautiful lands. They call it Badlands. So it's Badlands for bad people. I don't know. But the views from the properties. So it's not too steep. You know, those are hills. But when you're up there, you're high enough to where you're overlooking Mystic Lake, you're overlooking the San Jacinto Wildlife Preserve. So it's actually open space it you'll always have. So you'll be in a community where the views will always be preserved, right? Because it is open space controlled by the state. So it's actually a great location that will forever have those really nice natural views around it. And behind us, it's also all preserved land. So it's almost like an island. We were almost surprised at how did that happen over here. So we'll have to research how does that happen. But these are the only properties that you can develop in the Badlands. So there is like tens of thousands of acres that are going to be preserved. So this is almost like a little island, an enclave of about 2,800 units that will be surrounded by open space and great views. So I think it'll be a nice community to live in and convenient to everything else. So what happened over the years, right, retail has come east. So we have the Walmart and the Target right here at Nason and Moreno Beach Drive. So when all the retail was in the west end of town, over by the mall, this was a little bit far to go shopping, right? It wasn't as close. But over the years, we have a lot of amenities that have come this way. So now all of a sudden, from Gilman Spring Road, you take down Alessandro, Cactus, you can be right at the hospitals, you can be right at the shopping, you can be right by the freeway. So it's convenient. It becomes a viable, convenient place to be. Plus, you know, if you have jobs at this big job center, let's call it the job center, the World Logistics Center, you'll be across the street. You literally can ride your bike, right? You can, you know, the commute to work will be very close. So we see a lot of the housing demand will come from people who will have jobs in town, and especially jobs at the World Logistics Center. It'll be very easy to live across the street and be close to your home and your family and so forth. So maybe we'll bring the quality of life back to where you can actually see your kids go to school in the morning. You don't have to commute out of town, go to your job, come home for lunch, go back. Hopefully that will be how most people will end up living around here. That's a
Beautiful. Let's just take a couple more, and then Rose, and then Vicky.
So when you say community, are we talking about, well, we don't know if it's going to be gated or not, but is it going to be an HOA community?
Yeah, there will be an HOA. So it's a master plan community.
Okay.
Obviously, we try to do everything that the HOA costs are very low, because obviously people are sensitive to expenses. But we found different methods to do it. For example, one of the biggest HOA costs is the landscaping and maintenance. And we develop systems where we have non-irrigation landscaping. You see a lot of this landscaping here is using our systems where it's very, very low maintenance. And, depending, everybody likes different things, but we think it's quite nice, but it's also very low in maintenance in terms of trying to active. Yeah.
One more question. Schooling
Yeah.
in that area, I mean.
Right. So we may end up having to build a school, or they'll go into either the San Jacinto or the Moreno Valley School District.
Iddo, how long ago, how many years ago did you come up with this vision, and from then and where we are today, and then when is your when do you think it'll be completed? How long have you been in this process?
So I think it was 1912. No, I think it's a long time. I said it many times. It's the closest I ever get to eternal life is going through the California CEQA process. But I came here about this time around 2004, and we started to acquire and assemble property. It took many years to go through the design process and CEQA and all the stuff that relates to entitlements or the approval process. So it takes time. So I would say all of it together is about a 20-year process. But when we came here, we didn't have one piece of property, so we had to assemble a lot of different pieces. Those big properties weren't one piece. There's tens and tens of pieces. So we had to assemble them into one cohesive property, and then acquire some other properties. And then we acquired the property from the UC Regents, which is by the hospitals. So it took all this time. But the majority of the time is really going through the entitlement approval process. Yeah, that takes a long time. Yeah.
Quick question. A few years ago, you showed us a picture of a bridge. I think
Yeah.
Highland that was going to be hanging with the
Yeah. So we wanted to do this bridge. It's still a question. We're dealing with Caltrans, and sometimes it's hard for them to see past what they're used to doing. I told them it's time to change the 1970 design of bridges. The world has moved on. Maybe we should do something new. So they're kind of listening, but when you're dealing with agencies like Caltrans, everybody there is, it's like, oh, we know how to do this. And all of a sudden, well, this is different. And there's no one there. There's 10,000 people have to make a decision, and they have a book. And if it's not in the book, it has to go all the way up to Sacramento to somebody said, oh, you can change this. So we're working with them. It's a slow So far, we got the roundabouts. So that was already a big deal, just to get the roundabouts. My God. I didn't know whether they'll get peace in the Middle East or roundabout first. I don't know which would happen quicker. But we got the roundabouts going. So now we're trying to see what will happen with the bridge. But it's been proposed to them. It's been shown to them. But the bureaucracy is too entrenched, because they say, well, we don't know how to maintain it. It's not that complicated, but, it's a process. But
Well, let's build some
hopefully
houses. We'll build bridges later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there will be the bridge, the interchange, the roundabouts. Whether or not they let us do it, we'll still see.
Okay, Iddo, thank you very much. You've been super generous, as always.